Hello and welcome back to Witches of the Moon. I'm Eva Maria, your Monday hostess. I am doing this video for the second time, shooting this over again, because earlier today I shot this video and I was editing it, and then I had to go to work. I couldn't upload it. And then I came home and I was like trying to finish my edits, and I just wasn't happy with it. I felt that I didn't succeed at making the points and illustrating things as clearly as I hoped to do. So hopefully this attempt will be much more successful. Now this week's topic is divination. Not just divination in itself, but particularly various forms of divination. And while we know that there are some quite popular, well-known methods of divination, such as tarot, oracle cards, runes, ogham fuse, and etc., there are other forms that are a little less well-known, and some as well that are either innovations, that are very contemporary, that people have come up with in their own practice that they find a lot of success with. Or sometimes there are certain practitioners that will take an older or better known method and they will tweak it a bit, and they will find success in utilizing a technique like that they've elaborated on, in seeking insight and what have you, for divinatory purposes in their own practice. Despite the method that a person chooses, I think that all methods, to varying degrees and in varying ways, have something to offer us in our seeking of insight, and are, seeking for answers in regard to life's so-called mountains and valleys. I think there are probably as many methods of divination as there are grains of sand in the desert, and that's pretty cool because, one size doesn't fit all. Everyone has different needs, everyone has different talents, so I think it's wonderful that there are so many options available to us. Also, I feel that when considering divination, I feel it's helpful to have some sort of an understanding of, fate and free will and, destiny, the web of weird as some refer to it, or, things of that nature. And I do have thoughts to share with you on those sorts of things, but rather than going through them at length, because there's a lot to that, I did a video on my channel that I will be linking in the description below, after all my personal links, the links of how you could reach me. At the end of those, there will be a link to that video that I did regarding, the web of weird and, fate and free will and, the journey of life. So I do recommend that you watch that rather than going through the whole rigmarole of reiterating everything I've said in that video. I think it's just better if I just link that to save time in this video. But I do think that's something that some of you may be interested in. What else did I want to touch upon? There are two books also, before I get into talking about some methods of divination that I wanted to share with you. There are two books that I want to recommend to you that I think you may be interested in, and they are on the other end of the couch. Excuse me while I just grab those. Okay, I am back. The first book is by Scott Cunningham, and though its title is Divination for Beginners, please don't let that put you off, because there is actually a lot of useful information, I feel, in this book for people at all levels of practice, or at all, or in any place in one's personal journey, you know. Let me just read to you what is in the contents of this book. Okay, I'm going to skip past, you know, the forward, the acknowledgments, the introduction. We all know that books contain those. So, Part 1, Aspects of Divination. Chapter 1, Beginnings. Chapter 2, Divination in the Ancient World. Chapter 3, The Fine Art of Divination. Chapter 4, Symbolic Thought. Chapter 5, The Nature of Time. Chapter 6, Determinations. Chapter 7, Changing Your Future. Part 2, Techniques. Chapter 8, Water. Chapter 9, Fire, Candles, Smoke, and Ash. Chapter 10, Wind, Clouds, and Birds. Chapter 11, Plants and Herbs. Chapter 12, The Casting of Lots. Chapter 13, Crystal Gazing. Chapter 14, In Matters of Love. Chapter 15, Mirrors. Chapter 16, Stars, the Moon, and Lightning. Chapter 17, Other Forms of Divination. Part 3, Advanced Techniques. Chapter 18, Tarot. Chapter 19, Palmistry. Chapter 20, The I Ching, or Book of Changes. Chapter 21, The Future is Now. And then there are some appendices. Appendix 1, A Dictionary of Divinations. Appendix 2, Unusual Forms of Divination. And then there's a glossary of related terms. And then it just goes into the bibliography and index. But as you can tell from all that I read to you in that contents page, there's a lot in here that if you are, for example, someone who is interested in the topic of divination overall, I think this would be a good book for you. If you're someone who's exploring alternative, you know, methods of divination, something new that you haven't tried before, maybe this book will mention some things to you that, you know, some methods of divination to you that you have not yet tried, that you may not have heard of. So I do recommend Divination for Beginners by Scott Cunningham. And another book I'd like to share with you, this is a little more of an obscure book. It's called The Complete Book of Fortune, How to Reveal the Secrets of the Past, the Present, and the Future. And it doesn't actually list an author on the front cover, but it does say that it's published by Bracken Books, here on the spine. That's spelled B-R-A-C-K-E-N, Bracken Books. And this book, it has a lot of very old methods of divination, some of which are not well known, such as Napoleon's Book of Fate, for example, which I have found some really eerily accurate, you know, answers with. But I mean, this book also covers topics like palmistry and tea leaf reading. There are so many different. Let me just read you the contents in here. There's so many different things it covers. Okay, part 1, fortune telling and character reading. And again, fortune telling. Some people use the term fortune telling interchangeably with the term divination. Others do not. I think in this book it is used interchangeably. The methods that are covered in this book are fortune telling by playing cards, divination by dice and dominoes, reading the tea leaves, divination by crystal gazing, dreams and their interpretation, the dream oraculum, which is not a dream dictionary. It's actually a divinatory method that it's just interesting. It's not a dream dictionary. It says how to consult the oraculum. Okay, I'm going to give you an example. If you wish to know the meaning of any particularly vivid or worrying dream, the details of which you cannot remember clearly, it is necessary to find the appropriate symbols. To discover the first symbol, write down in figures the day of the week on which you dreamed, the day of the month on which you dreamed, the month when you dreamed, and your age. The figures should be written one under the other and then added up. Now place opposite each number, including the total. 1 star if it'd be odd, 2 stars if it'd be even. Basically, it sort of creates almost like geomantic figures, and then there's like a whole there's a whole listing that you would then go down and match up the figures that you create with the interpretations. So that's like kind of interesting. It's kind of different. Let's go back to the contents. Let's go back to the contents. Okay. So then there's also Napoleon's Book of Fate, as I mentioned. That's rather obscure, but still pretty cool. This book further covers numerology, the art of physiognomy, the science of phrenology. These days you don't find too many books that actually tell you about, the intricacies of phrenology, because a lot of people are like, oh, that's hooey, blah, 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 and, maybe it is, maybe it's not. But if you're curious to learn about it, this book actually has a chapter that will tell you the in depth about phrenology, which is pretty cool. And then there's also the art of reading the hand, the science of graphology, oracles, omens, and popular superstitions. Then part 2, the mystic meanings of things, talismans and amulets, the meaning of Christian names, like common names. The virtues of precious stones, the language and meaning of flowers, colors and their significance, and then part 3, the science of astrology, and the birthday calendar. So there's a lot of different things in this book. I think some parts of this book are a little more useful maybe, or more practical than perhaps others, but I think there is a lot of information in this book, particularly where they cover specific topics such as like tea leaf reading, palmistry, what have you. The chapters are fairly thorough and thick, and from what I understand, the information in this book, it was gathered from other books historically. That's kind of what I come to understand, I mean, just to give you an idea, hold on, give me 1 second. Just to give you an idea, they have like at length, this right here, that's the whole section on crystal gazing just by itself. That's a good amount of pages there, or even reading tea leaves. Let me show you how thick the section on tea leaves is. That's even more impressive. This here, this is the section on reading tea leaves. That is a good amount of material. So, suffice it to say, I do recommend The Complete Book of Fortune by Bracken Books. If you can find this book, this is something that I think you would love to have in your collection. Now, there are other books, of course. These are just 2 that I happen to have readily at hand, that came readily to mind. So I did want to make mention of those. And I think before I wrap up this video, I'd like to mention a few less common methods of divination that, you might want to try or consider. There's this one that I've seen, I don't even remember what show I was watching. I was watching some sort of show that had to do with the paranormal, and there was someone who, they would put water to boil on a stove. When the water came to a rolling boil, they would take a camera and start snapping pictures. Of course, before they started snapping the pictures, before they even boiled the water, they would have a kind of situation in mind, and they would kind of like ask, the divine or higher mind or what have you. They would sort of ask questions, either out loud or in their mind. I'd like to know more about such and such. Tell me about this, tell me about that. And then they would put the water to boil. The water would start to rolling boil, or the water would get to a rolling boil, I should say. That's a better way to say it. And then they would take a camera and start snapping off a whole bunch of pictures. And then they would examine the pictures and they would scry into the roiling water, the boiling, bubbly waters, and they would see images that would speak to them symbolically and kind of like tell stories, explain, a whole nother side of things to them, metaphorically speaking, it was symbolically, really. So that's one method. If you're a scryer by nature, you can try maybe, doing that process, and you can even use blessed water if you wanted to, or water that you charged for, divination. Let's say you go through a whole ritual or whatever to prepare your water. You can do something like that. Whether you put herbs in your water or not, or oils or what have you, that's totally up to you. Whether you even decide to bless your water, pray over your water, whatever you want to do, you can just use plain old water, whatever you want to do. Get that ready, say your prayers, or have your question in mind, or whatever process you want to go through. Get your water boiling, snap off pictures, and then examine the images and, let them kind of illustrate things to you. So that's one method. Another method, this is an elaboration on a method that I heard of somewhere, where people would use different cards that all the backs of the cards were the same, but then on the other side they would put like a little swatch or a scribble of different colors, or they would write, let's say if they wanted to do blue on on the reverse side of the card, they would take, let's say, a blue Sharpie and write blue or something like that, or whatever, or color it in a little bit blue or whatever. So they'd have all the different main colors of the color wheel, and then they would shuffle and focus on, well, what this situation is going on in my life, what's the situation need in particular, what is needed here, and then they would draw a card at random, or a few cards, however they decided to set up the layout, and then judging by the colors, the symbolism of the colors, they would know, okay, well, let's say pink comes up. Well, in this situation, a gentler approach, is probably needed, or love, or, tenderness, or something of that sort that would be pink associative would then be the answer. Or let's say if brown came up, it would be saying maybe something along the lines then of, this situation needs stability. This situation needs to be, made more stable, or sort of brought down to earth, that kind of a thing. Just to give you an example. So the symbolism of the colors that could be drawn, in that way, that could be another form of divination. But I thought, wouldn't it be so much easier, instead of creating cards, to take swatches of, let's say, felt, different colors of felt. You can buy felt at Walmart, get a different, all the different colors in felt, cut equally sized squares, put them in a container that is opaque, that you can't see through, shake up the container as you're asking your question, this situation is going on, what does this situation need? And then just reach in, they all feel the same because they're all felt, and then just pull out a piece, or however, if you want to do 3 pieces, whatever, 1 piece, however you want to do it, pull out the piece or pieces, and the colors that come out, according to the symbolism of what the colors mean, that is what your situation needs or could use. That's another method you can try. Or you can make up your own card oracle. I did one that was fairly easy. I had actually 3 different colors of cardstock. I think I used orange, yellow, and purple, and I assigned each color to a different aspect of the oracle. The first part had 4 cards, and the first part was, what is the nature of the situation? Spiritual, mental, physical, or emotional? And, that would be one deck, one little pile, 4 cards, face down. And then there was another differently colored deck I forget how many cards are in it. I actually have it somewhere in the spare room. I haven't used it in a while, but I found like this was really accurate. You make another deck then with another color card stock, which is what should I do? And there's all different various options. I just wrote them out in sentences. I didn't even bother to make illustrations. I just wrote, like, for example, one card might say do nothing. Another card might say something like give freely of yourself. Another card might say release what no longer serves you. Things like that. And I just tried to make a whole bunch to cover every possible scenario so that, when the cards, come up, there's just a wide array. And then, you know, when I'm doing the divination, it allows, I guess you could say higher mind, divinity, the spirits, what have you, that are leading the divination, it allows for them to have more to work with. You know what I'm saying? It allows for me also to have more to work with. And then the third deck was, where do I go for more insight, or where can I go, or where can I find more answers or more information? And it would say things like, one card I remember said, like, listen to conversation in passing. The answers will be there. Or one might say, heed the words of a child. Or one might say, turn to a neighbor. All these different, I made like totally all these different options for where to find more info besides doing the thing. So it was like the nature of the situation was one deck. Those were 4 cards: spiritual, mental, emotional, and physical. Then it was, what should I do right now? And then the third deck was, where can I go for more information? And I made sure to make each deck different colors so that when I'm shuffling them face down, I make sure that each deck stays separate. But it was like in a sense, 3 subdecks in one greater deck. So I found a lot of success with that too. Hey, Frost, my little cat. He's here. He's saying hello. I found success working with that 3-part deck. Hi, baby. What's the matter? What's the matter, baby? So that's another option as well. And he's just such a love. He's just such a love. Come on, baby. Come on. You have to come away from come away. Go that way. Oh my God. Go that way, Frost. Okay. What was I saying? Okay. So I think I've covered this topic adequately. I think I've introduced this topic decently well. I couldn't possibly speak about every form of divination, but I think I've given you, 3 options. Again, the boiling water with the photos, that's really well suited to scryers. The colored cloth interpretations for what a situation needs, anybody could really do that, I think, as long as you're somewhat up and up on, your color symbolism. And if you're not, that's not that hard to learn. And then the making your own oracle, anybody at all could do that, really. And you don't have to do like the 3-part deck. You can design your cards however you want. If you don't want to just use plain cardstock, there are a lot of retailers that sell like what they term blank tarot cards, where one side is blank and then the other side looks like a back of a tarot card, like legit. And you can just write or draw or do whatever you want. The sky's the limit. But I will say too, don't be afraid to make up your own forms of divination. Don't be afraid to test the waters, to, think about things. Or if you see a method and you're like, oh, that's pretty cool, but I would change this, go ahead and change it. Try it. You may just stumble onto something really freaking cool. And with that, I think I'm going to wrap this up. I hope your Monday was pretty good. Again, I am sorry that I had to reshoot this video. I just really wasn't satisfied with the first attempt I made. I really just wasn't. I hope your Monday was good. I welcome your thoughts, feelings, questions, comments, anything. You have suggestions for different or innovative divinatory techniques, please, bring them forward in the comments. I'd like to open dialogue. I like to share and talk, and that's how we all learn. And don't forget, go down in the description past my personal links of how you can contact me or where I'm making videos or where I can be found, all my personal links. After them, excuse me, there's going to be one more link to a video again on, fate, free will, the web of weird, the journey of life, that kind of stuff. You may be interested in watching that. So, I hope that I've done right by you all. And until our next exchange, until next week, stay tuned to this channel, watch everybody else's videos, and I will catch you all later. Stay awesome. Bye-bye for now.